Hello and welcome. I'm David Wick of the class of 1991. I use he, him, his pronouns. I studied French, German, and dance at Macalester. My studies there and the community of alumni continue to be very important parts of my life. I currently serve as the president of Macalester's Alumni Board. We are a working board with around 30 members represented classes from the 1950s to 2023. So we bring together current students, our future alumni, and our role is to support alumni engagement with alumni, with current students, and with the college. This webinar today is a wonderful example of the types of alumni engagement that we seek to support. All those who are registered and attending are engaging. Here are some of the details that we have from the registrants. We have alumni joining us today from the classes of 1948 to 2020 with a fairly even mix, which is great to see. Our registrants include alumni from across the US and around the world, including alumni from Austria, United Kingdom, Bangladesh, Japan, Denmark, Peru, and Ecuador. So we're eager to get into this conversation and learn more as we connect about what's currently happening at Macalester. Now, as we use this Zoom platform, you're already getting introduced via the chat, which is a function for sharing details like who you are, what you studied, where you're from. We will also be using the Q&A function, which is down in the bottom center of your screens. And when you enter questions there, they come to me and the other panelists, and then we can organize them so that I can share them back with our speaker today. I also want you to know that this event today is being recorded for those unable to attend or for any of you who might need to leave before the end of the session. We will be sharing the link on the website and in future Mac Together and on the MacWire. We are already receiving some questions in the Q&A, so great job using that function. Anything that comes up for you about our topic today and how you can engage as alumni with career exploration is welcome. So please use that at any time. And you can use the chat feature to interact with the webinar hosts. We will do our best to monitor and respond there. If you do have tech issues, also use the chat. And Hannah, who is here from Macalester staff, will do her best to assist you with any tech issues. So with that, I'd like to introduce our panelist. Mindy Deerdorf has been at Macalester for 4 years now as the Dean of Career Exploration. In this role, she sets the strategic direction for career services, including a team who helps students leverage their liberal arts degrees and put their Macalester values to work in the world. Mindy has been a tremendous partner for the Alumni Board and indeed all alumni. And I'd like to begin by thanking Mindy for taking time away from all of her work with her staff and the students to talk to us today and to share how career exploration is supporting students during this unprecedented time.
Good morning. So good to see you all. It is so fun watching your names scroll past names and grad years and so many familiar names. So hi all. I am sad that I cannot be with you all in community in person, but excited to be here today to share some additional information with you. Some of what we'll talk about is just the change that's happened in career exploration at Macalester over the past few years, which has been really extraordinary. The college has invested quite a bit of effort and resources into making sure that students have the best opportunity to leverage their Macalester experience as they move out into the world. And then I'll spend some time sharing some information about how we are uniquely supporting students during this time. Again, if I say the word unprecedented one more time, it will feel, if I had a quarter for every time that I've said unprecedented, I'd be rich. But it has been a unique time, but my staff has rallied and we have come up with some unique and interesting ways to support our students as this continues. And then we'll leave it open for Q&A. So excited to hear what you're thinking and how I can answer those questions and what is on your mind. Before I get into it, what I want to do is I do want to, in advance, ask for any grace if any of my two-legged or four-legged coworkers, I know you all are familiar with the new way of working, and your coworkers are not always as respectful as you hope they will be. So I've sequestered them in their corners of the household, and hopefully they will stay there. But again, would love some grace in case they make a cameo appearance today. Well, let's go ahead and get started. David, thanks so much. I was excited to see that David was willing to be my moderator for today. I think David, working in higher ed, has a unique understanding of some of the challenges that we're facing right now. So I'm excited to be in conversation with you shortly as we get to Q&A. But I'm going to go ahead and share just a couple of slides with you as we're talking today to guide our conversation. So if you have not seen this before, I want to share the mission of career exploration at Macalester College. First and foremost, we're champions for the value and universal applicability of a liberal arts degree. So we are completely agnostic about what it is that students want to do post-Macalester. We just want to make sure that they can do what it is that they want to do, and that we prep them to be prepared to again, to land in the careers that they want to land in post-Macalester. We seek to democratize career discernment, so it shouldn't be one particular major who has access to strong career services. It shouldn't be students who know to come in our doors. We want to be there as part of, we'll talk about this a bit later, an ecosystem to support students versus simply a place that they have to come to seek our support and assistance. We believe that successful career and vocational development begins early and is an integrated part of the student experience. This has really changed significantly over the past decade or so as career exploration and recruitment has pushed earlier in the student experience. And what we want is to make sure we provide students the tools early enough so that they can explore and course correct if they need to, versus coming to us their senior year when there's little time to reassess options. We strive to be a valuable tool in the faculty advising toolbox. You all know that some of your strongest relationships at Macalester are with your faculty within your majors or your concentrations, and we want to lift those relationships up and partner with faculty as we do our work. So I'm going to go to my next slide. So things have changed quite a bit in career exploration over the past few years. What I'm showing you here is a copy of our org chart circa 2016. We shared an assistant dean with health and wellness. Some of you who were here during that time remember that we shared that position. How one person was ever able to do that role, both roles, I'm not sure. And then we had a couple of assistant directors and associate directors of counseling. We had one 50% time employer relations counselor whose job it was to take in calls as they came in terms of people who were interested in hiring our students. Fast forward to now, this is where we exist. So we have grown significantly. So in addition to my position, which again was new post President Rosenberg's strategic plan in 2014, 2015, we have also significantly expanded our counseling footprint, which is right in the middle of this organizational chart. And we'll talk a little bit about how we do that. We've also built out a fully functioning employer relations side of our shop. So again, before it was a 50% time person who basically answered the phone and took in calls for people who had to come to us to ask to hire our students. And we now have a whole team, including Tony, who's with us today, who helps to engage both alum and employers in hiring our students for internships and full-time opportunities. You will also notice, those of you who were here prior to 2016, you'll remember that academic internships sat separate from career exploration, which led to lots of confusion and a lack of continuity of service for students. So since then, we used to be known as Career Development Center and the internship program. We have all come together under the common umbrella of career exploration. So students can come to us as a one-stop shop, anywhere from how do I get academic credit for my internship and explore opportunities, all the way through how might I negotiate multiple job offers that I have on the table. Next, I'm going to move forward to, sorry, my screen's moving a little bit slow today as I try to fast forward. We'll talk a little bit more about our coaching philosophy, counseling philosophy. So it used to be that in order to receive service from the Career Development Center, because we had our staff was so strapped, we waited for students to come to us in Kagan Commons, and that's not at all how we work anymore. So we think of ourselves now as an ecosystem versus a place, meaning that we are where students are, and we hope to make that much easier for them in terms of their engagement in our services and our support. One of the major ways that we do that is with divisional support. So up until a few years ago, our career counselors were generalists. So if you were an art student or you were an economics student, you could see the same career counselor. And as you can imagine, students within those vast variety of majors have really different needs. The career search for someone who's interested in being a working artist looks very, very different than it might be for someone who's looking to be to work in data analytics. So we've taken our career counseling staff and we've split them into academic divisions. So you'll see here that our career counselors each support a particular academic division. And in some cases, they actually sit physically as much as possible in those locations. So if you haven't been back to campus in some time, this is the Olin Rice Hub. You walk into Olin Rice, and this is smack in the middle of the first floor of Olin Rice. You could almost not help but run into it. The thought, and in this area, we have co-located Amanda Duffy, who is our natural sciences and math career counselor, and Liz Jansen, who is a biology faculty member who helps connect students to research opportunities. So within Olin Rice, again, instead of students having to come to us, we are kind of in the middle of their space. So as they're going to and from classes, as they're going to labs, they can easily stop by and ask the questions they have about their career development and the support and opportunities that are available to them for internships and full-time jobs. You'll see along the other side of the screen are our open office hours where we provide drop-in appointments across campus. So as of right now, the only hub that we have is within Olin Rice. So our long-term strategic plan would be to have a hub physically located in each academic division. As a transition into that, we put our career counselors physically into the spaces that are listed here and other creative spaces as often as we possibly can. So again, our students physically can run into their career counselor and go, oh, that's my person, they're in my space, instead of I have to go to the career center to get support from who knows who. This way, we hope our students will, in some ways, imprint on a particular career counselor to get the help and support that they need. The number of events and programming that we do has again increased exponentially. So some of these will look familiar to you from your time at Macalester. Individual appointments, those will never go away. Those are an important part of the work that we do. Alumni networking events, we continue to do that. We continue to do graduate school preparation. But as you go further down the list, you'll see lots of new and interesting events and programming. Handshake is our online proprietary career services software. We post positions and internships specifically for Macalester students. Students can apply to those positions on Handshake, and then the entire hiring process, the sort of operational pieces behind that happen in that software. Handshake is also a smart system, so the more active you are in Handshake, the algorithms read your interests, and then you can opt in to receive alerts about events and postings and opportunities that are related to your areas of interest. Curious about careers, those are virtual alumni events that we do where we bring alumni in to talk about some of their challenges in their careers, the interesting things they've faced, and how they live out their Macalester values in the world. On-campus interviewing, we have taken the second floor of the library where the Idea Lab is, and there are 4 rooms in the back of the Idea Lab. During heavy recruiting season, those rooms are ours to use, and we bring about a dozen companies on campus every year to do on-campus recruiting in our space. Students don't have to leave campus. They could put on their dress clothes, hop into one of those conference rooms, do their interview, and then go back to their sweats and head back to class. So we do everything we can to make that easy. On-campus career fairs. So we decided a couple of years ago that we would bring more employers on campus. We started by thinking that our first career fair would have about 15 employers. We ended up having to move the location of that career fair 3 times, all the way up to the Kagan Ballroom. And now we run a twice annual career fair with about 60 employers who are present at each of those. Wide variety of employers, anywhere from folks from Planned Parenthood to local and state government, all the way up to corporate employers from places like US Bank or Ecolab. Mac Explore and Mac Connect, we'll talk a little bit more about these. This is one of our on-campus career fairs I'll show you a picture of. It has happened when we are up in the Kagan Ballroom, and it is so exciting to see our students able to interact with folks who are interested in hiring them. Mac Explore is a new program. We've received a grant from the Trillium Family Foundation that's been renewed for another year. Our hope is to use our urban location to connect students to opportunities to explore what life in a career might look like. So Mac Connect, we'll talk about those next. Those are national opportunities. These are kind of Mac Connect lights. So as a sophomore, ideally, we would take you out over a day during one of your break periods, and we'd have you visit a wide variety of organizations within a particular career pathway, see McAllister alum at work, and then figure out, is this the path that I want to take or not, completely risk-free. These have been so wonderful. Some of you who are on the call today have actually hosted us on those visits, and it's a great way for students to begin to imagine what careers could look like. And again, a unique benefit that we have to, again, being located in the middle of an urban environment with such a wide variety of industry available to us for our students. Mac Connect is the national version of Mac Explore. We used to do one Mac Connect trip every year in partnership with Alumni Relations and Advancement, and we have now moved to anywhere between 4 and 5 trips every single year, where we engage between 100 alum and about 60 students. These are our students in front of the New York Times. We went to New York last year, and we had an alum call us and say, hey, would your students like to sit in on the editorial morning meeting at the New York Times? And we said, yeah, we would really love that. So here's an example of all of the places where we have taken students during our Mac Connect trips. It is remarkable when you begin to think about the wide reach of our alum. Our alum are incredibly gracious hosts. Washington, D.C., for example, I tell the story often that we put out a call on Friday for trips for students, for hosts, for site visits in Washington, D.C., and by Monday, we were completely full and oversubscribed for the number of folks who were willing to host us for those visits. So all sorts of growth in programming, in engagement with employers, in our staff. We have come a long way in terms of what we're able to provide our students. It's been exciting to grow. It's been exciting to see how it has positively impacted the student experience. But I want to spend the rest of my time before we move to Q&A talking a little bit more about virtual career services and support. And so again, in this time of COVID-19, how are we serving our students when they can't physically be with us on campus? The picture that's in front of you now is a photo that we took of part of my staff. What we are balancing right now is an interesting line between being accessible and supportive for students and making sure that students don't feel so completely overwhelmed by what we have to offer that they don't know where to start. So one of our key messages to students is we are here when you're ready. And so if you're not feeling ready right now to figure out how to start thinking about how to replace an internship that's fallen apart for the summer because maybe you have food insecurity or housing insecurity, that's okay. We're here for you whenever it is that you're ready to begin engaging in our services. So immediately when we learned that campus was shutting down physically, What we needed to address were our students who were currently on internships for academic credit. So we had dozens and dozens of students who were out in physical internships. Many of those internships began to fall apart. So the areas where students were working were no longer allowing folks to be physically in their locations. So Mike Porter, who is our director of academic internships, his full-time job for a few weeks was working with employers and faculty to provide students alternate options for virtual engagement to successfully complete their internships. And as of right now, it looks like we will students will successfully complete nearly all of those internships that were already in progress with some creative substitutions that Mike and his team were able to provide. The next question was, what do we do with the McAllister Summer Internship Grant? So we give out between $150,000 and $200,000, depending on what you count, for summer opportunities for students. And how can we in good conscience hand out opportunities where students may be physically going to locations where they may not be safe? Some of those go to students who work here internationally. Many of them go to students who work nationally in many, many different areas, labs, nonprofits, healthcare providers, anything and everything you can imagine. So we pivoted and made the decision that the McAllister Summer Internship Grant awards would all be virtual awards. So anyone who had already applied, we had them go back to their site visit hosts and have them verify that they could move their opportunities online. I am incredibly pleased to say that we have awarded, I think, 36 awards, and all of those awards are for virtual opportunities for students to continue doing some form of internship for this upcoming summer, which I feel really excited about. Additionally, summer research was a large question. So summer research is run out of the hub, that space that I showed you. And how would students be able to do research in the labs if they couldn't physically be here? So while we are not allowing students to live on campus this summer to do research in the labs, we asked our faculty to be creative and to transition their opportunities to virtual opportunities. We weren't sure how that was going to go. Faculty have a lot on their plates right now, moving things to a virtual environment. And over the past 2 weeks, the funding that we have available through the Provost's office, I am again pleased to say that every bit of that funding has been utilized. And so the faculty who have applied for opportunities have come back with really creative virtual opportunities for students to work with them instead of having to put them at risk and come into a lab. So lots of pivoting. The other thing that we're doing is online programming and support. So all of our appointments now are via Zoom, just like we are here today. Our counselors are becoming experts in that. But we also wanted to be more creative. So one of the things we know that students can control in a time of great uncertainty is their skill. And so how could we help our students quickly build up the skills that they needed to build to be ready for whatever opportunity might come their way? So we've launched an online skill webinar. We run it twice a week, and each week we run it on a different topic. So one week might be resumes, the next week might be how do you do informational interviewing in a time where everyone's remote. One week might be cover letters. We send students with a homework assignment, and then they can come back and check in with us during the next session. The other thing that we knew is that we know that at this time of year, often we are in community with students as they talk about their plans. So it might be running into a senior in the hall with that senior and their friend and informally chatting about their offers or what's still on board and what they need help with. And we didn't want to lose that. And so Mary Manuelson, one of our counselors, came up with the idea of house parties. So as students are sheltering in place with one another in their off-campus apartments, we have offered to send a pizza their way and a career counselor over Zoom. So we send the pizza, and then whoever is sheltering in place together in that house comes together in community with a career counselor. They eat their pizza. We ask how they're doing. We answer whatever questions they have about kind of the new internship and career search reality. So we've had 20 apartments full of students sign up for those, and those are running now through kind of the end of May. And if they continue to be popular, we'll continue to run them through the summer. We think a pizza is a small price to pay for us to be able to engage with our students and check in on them and make sure they have the support that they need. Additionally, we are getting really creative with making sure that there are enough internship and full-time opportunities for our students available moving forward. So summer research has panned out much better than we expected. The McAllister Summer Internship Grant opportunities moving to virtual opportunities, again, has panned out better than we've expected. But we know that there are students, many, many students who are still out there looking. And so how can we make sure that we have the broadest number of opportunities available? And how can we think creatively about what we might do as a college? So a couple of things that we've done, hopefully you all received an email from the Alumni Relations team asking you to post any internship or full-time opportunities that you might have on a crowdsourced Google Sheet that we have. That's been very popular when students are in career counseling appointments and you say, I have a spreadsheet that has dozens of opportunities that our alum have provided for you. There's this kind of audible release of stress and students feel really well cared for. So we continue to source opportunities from our alum. We're doing targeted outreach. Last week we did some targeted outreach to alum in industries where we believe that there is still great demand, saying, if you have an opportunity, again, please post. We'd love to see you. Additionally, we'll do outreach in the parent newsletter that will go out in the next couple of days, asking any parents. I don't think that's gone out yet. I think it goes out early next week, where we'll ask parents to also post to that crowdsourced spreadsheet any internship or full-time opportunities that they might have available. So we'll talk about how you can help, and that is certainly one way that you can be incredibly helpful for our students. Another thing that we are working on that we have not yet completely figured out the details on is we are trying to figure out how we might provide students with some funding for what we're calling micro internships. So perhaps during the month of July, could we pose questions to small groups of students and have them work as consultants on those questions, perhaps for problems our alum are facing in their work, in their nonprofits. And then could we coach and counsel them through that process so that they get some work experience over the summer? It may not be a full internship, but let's get them some strong transferable skills so there's not the hole in their resume that we know can be so detrimental, particularly between junior year and senior year. So we're working on that right now. We're hoping that we can meet a few dozen students with the micro internships program that we're working on. So we will keep you all posted on those details. They are literally in the works as we speak. We know one of the questions that came before we started today that an alum had posed would be, how does this particularly impact students in different special populations? So international students, first generation students were two areas of concern for our alum. Know that those are areas of concern for us as well. So we know that international students are sort of doubly challenged in terms of finding placement because of the issues around visa sponsorship and the bottleneck that occurs in terms of the number of visas that are available for students to continue to work in the United States, and that continues to be problematic. What we do know, so we have special outreach that we have drafted to our international students and that we've drafted to our first generation students who we think are challenged in a different way. Again, there may be housing insecurity, there may be food insecurity in the homes that they're going home to, and so making sure that those students have had some special outreach so that they know that we're here for them. For our international students, what we know is that there are particular industries where there's still quite a bit of hiring happening. So for example, we had a house party yesterday and we have an international student who just got a job offer from Amazon. So doing kind of computer science analytical work. So that offer will continue to move forward without any interruption. So we are doing our very best to source as many opportunities as we possibly can for international students. Again, knowing the challenges of the thought of potentially needing to go back home. We have about 100 students who are still living on campus. Many of those are international students who chose to not go home at the end of all of this. So again, we're working closely with them. The one silver lining to all of this is that last year, there was quite a backlog in OPT, which is the visa sponsorship for students to do optional practical training beyond their time. So once they graduate, students can work on an OPT visa, and those were taking months and months longer than they had taken historically, mainly because of some administrative measures to make that more difficult for international students. And what we're seeing this year is that those processes have gone much faster than last year. So the silver lining in this is that if our international students do have an offer, we're finding that there isn't the worry of an extended wait time on OPT as there was last year for our students, where some students lost job offers because they just could not get their OPT visa paperwork processed in time. So some small silver lining there for our international students. The next question that I continue to get from you all, the gracious question of how can I help? And there are two main ways that we would love to have your help. One, again, hire a Macalester student as an intern or a full-time employee. If we haven't already, I don't have the chat function quite up, but I think some of my facilitators will drop into the chat function the link for you to go ahead and post those opportunities. It's a quick form, and then that populates, again, a crowdsourced spreadsheet that our students all have access to. Become a career helper in Mac Direct. So now more than ever, we're using that career helper designation to help us source folks for panels. We will do a panel in a couple of weeks around job sourcing in a difficult time, utilizing our alum who graduated during the most recent recession. We're doing a panel for students of alum in investment banking for our students who are interested in doing that. We're doing some panels of alum who are working in service year organizations to talk about how that's changed post-COVID. So we continue to use those career helper badges more and more. Also, as we talk with students about the delicate dance of informational interviewing and making connection during this time of high stress for everyone, again, now more than ever, we point them to those career helper badges to say, these are alum who have specifically said they want to help. So start there. You've got some warm openings with those alum. So we would love any help that you could give in that particular way. Long term, we hope that we will be back doing programs like Mac Explore and Mac Connect as we move into 2021. And we are always looking for hosts for those. And so Tony, who is a new hire in our department, Tony is an associate director of alumni and parent engagement. Her entire job is to help plug alum into career exploration opportunities for our students. So I think her contact information is also being dropped into the comments. So please don't hesitate to reach out to Tony and raise your hand and say, hey, when you're ready, I'd love to host you all for a visit at my organization. Or if we can't be in person, I'm happy to do a virtual visit. So I have talked for quite some time, and now I want to open it for Q&A. So David, I think I turn it back to you, and you're going to moderate for us, right?
Yes, that's correct, Mindy. Thank you so much. In fact, along the way, you were answering many of the questions that were coming in. What really struck me is that the bulk of the questions are about the ways that you're supporting students, which to me is heartening, right? It says this group of alumni, nearly 80 strong on this call, are particularly concerned with how students continue to learn and grow and prepare for their futures. So great reminder for all of us of this community. So one question was specifically, what is Macalester doing for the students whose Mac Connect trips were canceled due to COVID-19?
Yeah, so for the students whose Mac Connect trips were canceled during COVID, those were heartbreaking decisions to make because they were right in the very beginning as things were shutting down. And so we made, in retrospect, I think wise decisions. New York is one of the locations that we were headed to in Seattle, which ended up at that point in the beginning being real hotspots. And so I'm grateful that we made that decision. So for our students who were supposed to go on Mac Connect, we brought Mac Connect to them as virtually as we could. So we already run alumni panels that were focused on the two topical areas for those March Mac Connect trips. And students were able to get in and engage with alum virtually, which I think was incredibly helpful for them. In addition, The flights that students were supposed to take out to those areas were flights that were paid for out of that same grant that is paying for Mac Explore. And instead of asking students to give that money back, we've asked students to actually cash out whatever the value of that ticket would be for them, and they're able to keep that as a travel voucher for some future career-related travel opportunity. So it may be that they are going to head to Washington, D.C., or they're going to head to New York, or they're going to head to Seattle, wherever it is that we were maybe going to go. Or it may be that later on, as things begin to open up, they have an interview opportunity. So those vouchers are sitting with students, and they get to keep those vouchers to utilize them moving forward. It's not exactly Mac Connect, but it's something. The other thing that I would say is that we, depending on what 2021 looks like, we will most likely run the trips that were supposed to happen this year in that in 2021, and the students who had applied and were accepted and who are still there, who are still here at Macalester, so not the seniors but the juniors and the sophomores, we would of course give them priority to attend those trips.
Thank you so much, Mindy. And I know from past trips and supporting the groups that came to the San Francisco Bay Area where I live, that it's been amazing to see those students. So I encourage all the alumni on this call to watch for outreach if there's a Mac Connect coming to a place near you. Mindy, you shared some things about the house parties, which sound amazing. And that links to another question we've had, which is just how have the career counselors adjusted their conversations with students? So we heard a little bit about form, but I think this is also a question about content.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So we have within our career counseling function, there are scripts or curriculum that we use to help guide our counseling conversations, and we've completely rewritten those scripts. And so those scripts now begin with, are you safe? Are you healthy? Do you have access to food? Do you have access to housing? So we begin those conversations with the students' most basic needs to make sure that they have what they need. And then we move beyond that to what the question might be. It's so interesting because the questions are still all over the board. We have everything from, I have multiple job offers, which is a privileged, lovely place to be, and how do I negotiate those multiple job offers, all the way to, I just need some help touching up my resume. So it's really all over the board what students are coming to us with, but we start those conversations again at a place of basic help and support for students.
That's great. Thank you so much. One of the other questions, so many of the alumni on the call were communicating via chat that what you're describing is very different from what we experienced, right? This idea of looking at student support throughout their college career. But one alumni reflected on how they were guided by their career advisor back in the 70s to add a second major because one of their majors had fewer direct paths to the kind of employment that alumna is seeking. And he was curious if that's still a kind of conversation or relationship that you all have with students about advising on which majors and minors they might select.
Yeah, we do, while not a primary focus of our office, career selection is often intricately tied with major selection. So we can't really get away from those conversations. What we absolutely 100% do not do is endorse any particular major over another, particularly based on employability. And so, right, because there is, a wide range of opportunities that are available in X field and maybe not in Y field, we would never send a student down a path of a particular field. I will say though that we have students more often as the student population at Macalester diversifies, particularly with our students who come from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, our low-income students often come to us asking that question. So we don't prompt that question with students, but students ask us that question because they are concerned about their ability to pay back the debt that they've incurred to be here. And if that is the case, then we can help direct students to resources where they can begin to assess those concerns.
Thank you. That's a nice picture of the holistic approach that you all are taking with students. We had a couple alumni who are curious if career exploration is available to help recent alum who are struggling due to COVID And one of the sub-questions was from a 2018 international alumna who's still on OPT and may need assistance. So what can you say about how your team can support alumni?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our appointments that are available and open right now are also available to alum. So at any point you can get out into Handshake and you can request any open appointment if you are an alum. So we will help you just as we would if you were a current student. If you look at those available appointments, again, we know you are spread far and wide. And so if you look at those available appointments and you don't see a time that's available that works for your particular schedule, flexibility is the name of our game right now. And so again, we're running house parties at 6 o'clock at night. And so please email the general career exploration email address, careerexploration@macalester.edu. We're checking that multiple times a day, and we'll help you figure out a way to get connected to a counselor during a time that can work for you.
That's really helpful. I'm going to go to another category of questions we got, and they are folks who are on this call who want to offer internships or other opportunities. And one was, can you talk a little bit about the types of internships, maybe the work or maybe some of the qualities that need to be there that are of the greatest interest and value to students, so we know what we should find in our communities and add to the list?
Mm-hmm. We are a great liberal arts institution, right? So that's a hard question to answer because it is all across the board. What we find, maybe I'll answer that from the opposite direction, which is what students don't find as interesting, perhaps. Where students are not as interested would be things that are called internships, but maybe aren't exactly internships. So it's more like very kind of administrative, tasky work. That being said, we're in a different environment now. So students are more flexible than they've been historically, right? But what students really love is to be able to get their hands on a project and to sort of really work that project from start to finish. So a good model is to sort of have a question in mind and to give that question to a student and let them work through that question over the course of their internship. The other thing that we can help you do is we can help you build out an internship. So if you think that you need help and you're just not sure how to make that happen, Mike Porter, who's our Director of Academic Internships, is gifted at working with alum and employers to talk through what makes a good internship, particularly a good virtual internship in the current environment.
Thank you, that's really helpful. This will be our last question, and it's related to alumni engagement, right? The folks who are here today. I'm going to bring a few things together for you to touch on as you can. So one was from alumni in communities like Washington, D.C., where a lot of students migrate when they complete their Macalester education. And just a question on the kinds of advice you give to students on how to connect with and leverage the alumni network as they move into their careers or try to get in. One model that someone else asked about was Macalester Career Clubs, which is something the Alumni Board has spearheaded, and a curiosity whether that's something we should try to do and what ideas you have for virtual. Mm-hmm. And I'll stop there. So those are two things we'd love to hear a little bit about in terms of how we can help.
Yeah, so we have students, you're right, who cluster geographically or who cluster by what we call career pathway, right? So, you know, we kind of break our students' first destinations up into about a dozen career pathways. And one of the reasons that we hired Tony specifically was to help us build out the programming related to how can students connect to alum across those different areas. So that is beginning to grow, and I think will just continue to grow, especially as we move into the next year. And there is so much that can be done virtually. So career clubs, what career clubs are, we have a couple alum on the call who have started career clubs. As an interested alum, you can take an interest area. It might be, let's say, government work, and you want to be connected to other alum who are doing government work here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So all you have to do is say, I'd love to pull those people together, and we can help you do it virtually. And you can then network and communicate with folks around a particular area of interest, whatever that might be. It might be a geographic location, it might be a career pathway. we can help you get those started. Ideally, though, we wanted those to happen in person, but again, I think we can do those virtually. And so if you're interested in getting a career club started, talk with Tony, again, whose email is in there, and we can work you through how to begin to get those moving, with the hope then being that we would begin to connect students to those career clubs then. So as a student would share an interest with us, we could say, hey, we've got this group of 25 people working in government in the Twin Cities. These are the people you should start with and talk to if you're just sitting right here and looking to connect.
Great. So thank you so much, Mindy. I'm inspired to find more ways to connect with this great community and to support the wonderful work you and your team in career exploration are doing. As we close today, I do want to thank the alumni who joined us. Thank you for your engagement and for maintaining your commitment to Macalester and to current students. Finding belonging and community at this time is particularly important. So seeing you all today has been very rewarding for me, and I think for all those from Macalester who are on the webinar. As we mentioned at the start, we will be sharing a recording of this video and all of the links and resources we discussed on the Mac Together webpage and in MacWire. In closing, we do have 3 requests for you. We urge you all to log into MacDirect and sign up as a career helper. I've heard so much about how students and the career exploration team leverage that data to find connections and help students navigate their career pathways. So it's essential that you start there. Additionally, please do post internships and jobs for students or reach out to Career Explorations if you'd like to discuss developing a meaningful resource. And finally, we will be sending out a survey. Your comments and feedback in that post-webinar survey is very helpful to us, and we ask you to do that. So I'll post these 3 requests in the chat as well. And in closing, I'd like to wish you all wellness and well-being, and to say together, go Mac.